I'm going to turn it over to Bruce Ard, my co-host, to introduce his guest.
Well, thank Rich. I mean, I think it's great. I mean, as you know, we're right in the midst of the elections, and we're interviewing candidates. We're talking the issues. We just got through talking to one of the ballot measures that were out there. I thought it was a very interesting interview, and really very informative, too. You did a good job. I mean, those young ladies did a really good job.
Like I said, they were good speakers.
They were good speakers, good speakers. Well, I tell you what, we're going to have some good speakers coming on now. We're going to have, we're going to actually be interviewing for quite some time 2 individuals who are running for Congress. And you're going to be very interested in that right here in the major Multnomah County, or the metro area, if you will, Portland metro area, the largest city and the largest social issues in the state. And these individuals have quite a background and very enthusiastic, if you will, in trying to dig into what are the issues, what are some of the major issues here in this area that's going to be impacting them once they run for Congress, while they're running for Congress, and once they're elected. Okay, so with that, what we're going to do is that the major issue that we're going to be talking about, that we're going to be discussing with them about, is sitting right here with us, and I'm talking about Sheila Scott. Ms. Scott here has been very much involved in the whole issue of home care of the elderly. And part of that elderly, and actually the military, veterans. Veterans are really getting in there. World War II.
Well, we don't know anybody that old.
That's right. I'm just saying. We've always been millennium seniors anyway. Okay. But anyway, what we're going to do is that she's been. I mean, if anybody knows what's going on out there as far as the senior citizen is concerned, and again, naturally, I'm very partial to the veterans aspect of it. It's her. I mean, I met her. With one of the veterans that I knew that I was reaching out to in regards to getting. He and his wife are familiar with the healthcare issues, healthcare systems within the VA, the Veterans Administration, and she was there caring for this one particular veteran that I knew, and it was very interesting. And then I had the opportunity to chat with her about what else is out there, you know, as opposed to veterans and just seniors across the board. She really has a deep knowledge of that situation, and it's very, very important for families to think about what's going on, and it's very, very informative. You understand that taxpayers put quite a bit of money, if you will, in this system to make sure we take care of our elders. These are people that have worked all their lives, if you will, all their lives, paying Social Security, and at the end of the deal, a lot of them are struggling just to try to get the monies to come back so that they can actually, i.e., be taken care of, rightfully so, okay? So let's talk to her and get a better feel of what she's encountered while she was doing this thing, and then after we get through talking to her a few more minutes, we'll then bring these guys that are running for office, and we'll go from there. Okay, Sheila, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Again, you're looking well tonight. You're looking good. You did such a good job, as you will.
Thank you.
Why don't we just jump right up in there, real quick? Like, one, how long have you been in this business?
Well, I've been a care provider since 1994.
94.
I cared for my late husband just for a while as he became ill when he was working. He was a younger man, but he was disabled at a young age. And I have been caring for people, seniors and veterans and people with disabilities since the last 10, 15 years in this state and other states also. I have a passion, you know. I found that it just fell in my lap, you know. You go along with life, doing life, and I just found that that was something that I began to take on, which is caring for seniors. I have a passion for seniors because I noticed that as they're aging, a lot of seniors don't have people that come out and check on them. They don't have their own family members don't visit them. And so I began taking care of seniors on a full-time basis, pretty much, here in the state. And as I took care of seniors, I would come into the knowledge and understanding that a lot of seniors are being neglected in different ways. Our system is failing seniors. There's a basic Bill of Rights that, you know, I feel that aren't being met for our seniors. In the last several years, as I come across seniors, I've even had seniors talk to me about, you know, they may be on food stamps where they get $19 a month, and they talked to me about they food stamps benefits were being cut $5, and I say cut.
And they get 15 bucks a month. Now it's being cut to $5.
They were getting $9, and it was cut down to, yeah. And I thought that was, that's a travesty that you can't buy basic needs, butter, milk, bread, eggs on $15.
And this is happening now.
This has been going on. I haven't been keeping up with it as far as today, but it has been happening to many seniors. And so what I started doing was driving seniors to the food banks so that they would have food to make it through the month, because their income is not enough to sustain them. But I also care for them on the level of everyday needs, which is called ADL, their daily functions of eating, cleaning, bathing, showering, depending on their level of care.
How did they get cut down so much on that money? $9.15, it just doesn't sound like enough to...
Some of the seniors that I talked to, they were only getting less than $20, and then they were being cut down $5. Yeah.
Then I got to ask you about Meals on Wheels.
Meals on Wheels, some people like it, some people don't.
Well, if they need food, need it, they'll...
Yeah, some people try it, some people,
All right.
try to do without it.
And the county's running all of this operation, right? The county's responsible?
I believe the county is responsible.
Yeah, they're responsible, like Multnomah County. It's the largest county in the state of Oregon.
Yes.
So it's got that's quite a job.
Sure.
That's quite a job in trying to get those facilities. And when Richard mentions about the Wheels on Wheel, it's a fact. They're going to be cutting down some of the Wheels on Wheel. And you're trying to figure out, well, you got to be kidding me with all these other things. I mean, that's one thing you don't cut. Seniors and, people that have worked all their lives.
Yes.
All their lives, putting money set aside and giving it to responsible folks that's supposed to be doling it out back to take care of those last few good years. A roof over their head, food, and then there's the medicals aspect of it.
Exactly.
And then there's the whole issue with pharmaceutical drugs that they have to survive on. And I'm telling you, it just blew my mind the other day when I saw a lady that was standing in line that I was picking up medical subscription for my wife, and there she was, and she was crying. And what she was crying about is that she had just gotten a letter talking about the thinning of the blood. What's that?
Coumadin.
Coumadin, but they got new medications now. All of a sudden, she was having to come up with $1,000 a month. $1,000 a month.
She has to apply to the company even. I think the company...
Yeah, the company. Yeah, but that was her bottom line.
Okay.
And after she got through getting the coupons and this, that, and other, and she was crying with the lady up there saying, "Look, I need this medication." So I'm a point is that I'm throwing that out at the table because that's a concern.
Nobody gets that little, do they?
No, well, hey, it's...
Well, I believe that our system is failing. Somebody's dropped the ball, and seniors, I believe, need to be looked at a little bit greater. There's a lot of things going on, and we can't talk about all of them in 15 minutes.
Right.
We just don't have the time. There's a lot of things. There needs to be education not only for the families, but also for the seniors. There are a lot of seniors that do not know that there's benefits out there that are ailing that could have someone to come in to help them on a day-to-day basis. For one, there are other products, benefits that they're eligible for that a lot of seniors, when I talk to them, they have no knowledge of it. Caseworkers don't, give them that information. And there's a lot of things that, the seniors need to be educated on. Some of the workers need to be educated. Sometimes, with it being aging and disability and Multnomah County, there seems to be sometimes a disconnect when you try and talk to the employees. They say, well, we don't work for that side. It's all under one umbrella. And I believe that when you're working a job, you should try and learn as much as you can in that industry, so that you can be of help and of service to the people that you're greeting every day. You know, if you have no knowledge, how can you help and serve someone?
Well, tell me something else. What about just the lack of the labor force out there to help those seniors? People like yourselves. Now, I understand that there's sort of a shortage now, and then and I think in your particular case, here you are. The possibility, normally your next step is to probably you're putting together a business to basically be able to take care of more seniors as a small business person aspect of it. And I understand I know you've been struggling trying to get that situation done. That's an issue there, as far as making sure we got enough people to take care of these folks.
Sure. You know, we just need, or for myself, I've been trying to get an adult senior home together. I have visions and goals that I would like to do, short range goals and long range goals in helping seniors, providing quality care for them, providing a place where they can live with a life of quality living, not just existing. I think a little step above a nursing home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, being in a place where they're happy, they love where they are,
Mm-hmm.
they enjoy the people that are working there, enjoy working with these seniors. And of course, an adult foster home, you can only have up to 5 clients. So my next vision is to move up a little bit higher. But right now I'm embarking on trying to get this home open, and it takes funds to do that. It takes funding.
What about veterans? Do veterans have an edge even on this food or money for food or anything like that? Do they have a better situation? Or?
Well, I'm not sure. The veterans that I've worked with, they do pretty good.
Okay.
The veteran that Bruce was telling you that I worked for, he had a pretty good. I mean, it depends on. I would say if it's a 2-family income, then they probably can do better than one person that's on a low income budget. And I'm sure veterans' income vary. It's not just one amount.
Okay.
It depends
Okay.
on how long they serve. Probably if they are 100% or if they're deemed at 50%. I'm not really sure.
He had benefits.
Yes.
Because he had a pension. He had a pension going.
Yeah.
So he was good. But like I said, he had a heart attack. But the fact of the matter is, if someone like her had not been around, I mean, it would have been tough. But imagine, like you said, if a person wasn't a veteran, it would really something else. So we do need someone like her. We got about a half a minute left, Mo. But the bottom line is that we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But I wanted to make sure we introduce her before we talk to these other 2 guys.
Well,
because
introduce her again.
Yeah, we definitely will do that. Okay. And then again, like I said, we've got Miss Sheila Scott here, and she's going to be trying to put together her business aspect of it. But she is definitely a well known. I mean, she really does a good job out there with these seniors. And we want to thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
And it's not over with yet. Yes. We're going to have you back on the show again. Is that fair?
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Scott. Appreciate that very much. What we're going to do, we're going to take a short break, and then we'll be right back with these 2 candidates that are running for office. And maybe we can talk about Ms. Scott's issues. Okay? Take care.
Okay.
Yeah, we took that 15 minutes. And then put on tonight, see.
Oh, okay.
Okay, well, look like we're back. I think we're almost there. We are back. We're almost back.
So which camera should I look at then? Or?
Just look at us.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. I guess we're back.
Right.
I mean, we just got through interviewing this issue, right, within the Multnomah County metropolitan area, city of Portland aspect of it.
Yeah.
We got two guys that are going to be going back to Washington D.C. after the swamp has been cleaned, and these are two fresh guys. You know what I'm saying? And boy, they're eager too. I tell you, I'm really excited about that because trying to get in touch with these other guys who are already there. That was the whole purpose of cleaning the swamp to begin with.
Oh.
Okay, all right. But the bottom line is that these guys have shown up. They're eager. They're ready to go. They've got good background and they know what they're talking about. And I thought we'd go on and introduce them again tonight. And what we're going to do, we're going to talk to them a bit, find out a little bit about each one of them, and then we're going to maybe talk about that and maybe share that issue. Hopefully they'll share something about a solution to the issue that we just got through interviewing this young lady, Sheila, Miss Sheila Scott. You know, about the senior citizen. Where is the money? You know, show me the beef.
That was part
right?
of the problem.
Exactly, big time, big time. And we've got Mark Callahan. He's running again, and he's District number 5, right?
Yep, District 5, yep.
District 5, and we got Tom Harrison, okay? District number 3. Yep. 3, I think that's Earl Blumhouse seat. And what's that other guy?
Kurt Schrader. I'm running against
Kurt
Kurt
Schrader. Kurt Schrader, okay,
Oh,
good.
yeah. Yeah.
You know, I've always said, why not mention the name so they make sure they know the difference. When they're looking at that ballot, they'll know your name as opposed to the other guy. Some folks say, well, just don't mention the names at all. Well, gee, wait a minute. If the guy's that familiarity piece, that doesn't work, for example. So name the guy. We got Callahan here, and we've got Harrison. Okay, guys, what we're going to do, welcome aboard.
Well, thank you.
Okay, good. So let's just get right down to business. We'll just go on and give each one of you about 15 minutes, and then we'll discuss the rest of it. Okay. You know, about the issue, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Who wants to go? Who went first the last time around?
Mark can go first.
Mark, how about you, Mark?
He sets the timestamp.
He sets the time? Okay, Mark, go on, Mark.
Well, I'm a father. I'm an average American. I love our country. Been going around the campaign trail. My district includes Marion, Polk, Lincoln, Tillamook, and Clackamas County. A little bit of Multnomah on the south and a little bit of Benton on the north.
Okay.
I've been speaking to people. I spoke with a Rotary group earlier today, Westland Rotary, and I've been speaking with other groups as well, Republican groups, even other groups as well, all across the district. I was over in Tillamook actually earlier this week. I'm actually going back over there next week, and then we also have a candidate forum with Schrader and I, and then also the Green Party candidate. Marvin next week in Milwaukee. But basically I'm running on a platform that's threefold. I am a constitutional conservative myself. I carry around my Constitution with me everywhere I go.
Well used too.
Yeah, it's a little bit used.
I better bring him a new one.
Yeah, I've taped it back together. Surprisingly, people have actually sent these in the mail to me. Said, Mark, why don't you get a new one? But I like my original one. I've kind of taped it back together over the years. But I'm a constitutional conservative Republican. But the thing is, when I get back there, I'm going to be working for everyone. I'm going to be implementing what I refer to as an open door policy to basically talk to anyone, talk to everyone, listen empathetically, and work for them, represent everyone in the 5th Congressional District, regardless of political affiliation, regardless of social division, because that's what I'm there to do. I'm there to represent everyone in the 5th District, not just Republicans. I'm there to represent Democrats, liberals, conservatives, libertarians, unaffiliated, independent, even Green Party members. But I'm there to represent everyone in the district, and that's kind of the mindset that I'm going back there to do. The 3 issues that I'm running on for this campaign are veterans health care reform, immigration reform, and tax reform. So veterans health care reform, as I stated on our previous segment or in the past, veterans health care reform is, both my parents were Navy. And my wife is a Coast Guard veteran. My dad was a machinist mate in the 70s, served in Vietnam. My mom was a data systems technician also in the 70s. And then she went back into the reserves in the 90s as a mess cook and served on board the USS Guam. My wife, Nicole, is a Coast Guard veteran. She was an avionics technician up in Astoria, and she worked on those big helicopters up there when she was in. But she had some service-related injuries to her back, and I know she's been going through a lot of hassle, a lot of frustration in terms of actually getting health care from the VA, and she's being outsourced upon outsourced upon outsourced. So I want to simplify the process. I want to give every veteran a card, similar to what they have right now within the VA, but I want to be able to give everyone veteran a card, go to any doctor they want, VA picks up the tab. Because as I said, veterans served us. It's time for us to serve veterans. Second issue I'm running is immigration reform. Immigration reform, I'm on the board for Oregon Immigration Reform. We're the group behind running the Yes on 105 vote. Yes on 105 would basically stop Oregon from being a sanctuary state.
Yes.
The way I see it is this. I see things kind of simply. I'm not simple-minded by any means, but I see things kind of simply. And I like to make things simple. Basically, if you're going to be here, you got to be here legally.
Right.
And if you're here illegally, you literally are breaking our laws. I mean, there was a president in the 1990s, Bill Clinton. He's on the other side of the aisle that I'm from, but he basically said in one of his State of the Union addresses, he said, "We are a nation of immigrants, yes, but we are also a nation of laws. So we need to have people in our country that are here to obey the law, not break into our country and be here illegally." Third issue I'm running on is tax reform. So tax reform, I'm a limited government guy myself. I believe less government equals more freedom. I think that we should have more money in our wallets as opposed to the government having more money in their wallets, because we obviously spend money better than the government can spend money. We don't waste as much, for one, and they have a $4 trillion budget, and we are $21 trillion in debt. So that kind of tells you something about how the government wastes and spends our money. So the way I see it is this: I'm more in favor of a flat tax type system to replace the whole system, so we get to have more money in our wallets. Unfortunately, my opponent, Kurt Schrader, voted against the recent Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. He voted against making the individual tax cuts permanent. And that's just sad because he's not representing us. He's not representing me. I'm currently a constituent of my opponent, and that's why I'm running against him, because it got to the point for me where I just had to get off the couch, stop watching TV and complaining, and actually get out there and do something. For one, the TV doesn't yell back, unless you turn up the volume, of course. But I'm a very motivated and driven individual. I believe in things like honor and integrity and character. You don't really hear about honor and integrity and character much anymore. It's kind of words of a day gone by. But it's what I believe in. I'm an Eagle Scout myself. I love this country. I love my family. I have a couple daughters, Heather and Sarah. They're 14 and 15 years old. Got the gray hair to prove it up here, and I do cover it up with the hair gel, though. But anyway, so I'm doing it. I mean, people ask me why I'm out there on the trail, and I tell them one thing: it's all about love to me, love of country and love of family. And as I said, motivation and love to get off that couch and actually do something. So that's why I'm running, Bruce.
Okay, all right then. So. We'll give Tom a hit, and then we'll ask some more questions.
All right.
Tom. Okay, Tom.
Well,
you're running against Earl the Pearl.
Running against Earl Blumenauer. How that happened is easy enough. It was opened up my primary ballot this season and discovered that no Republican had stood up to run against Earl Blumenauer.
Okay.
I said that's enough of that, and so within about 2 weeks left in the primary season, I launched a write-in campaign and beat the other major opponent who was running a write-in campaign. Guess who that was? It was Earl Blumenauer.
What?
So I beat him by 7 votes and became the Republican
wait a
nominee.
minute. How did he ran against you?
It's legal. What he did was, what happens is some of his more fervent supporters will switch parties before the primary in order to do a write-in to get him on the ballot as the Republican nominee.
Okay.
And then they switch back afterward.
Wow.
It's legal.
That's what
maybe a dirty
But
trick.
he did that?
But it's done by
Rush
both
Limbaugh
parties. all over the
wanted
place.
them to do that, to do with the
Yes,
Clintons.
that's right.
Well,
That's right. It's one of the and it's legal everywhere. It's just a matter of how many days there are before.
But what I don't understand the purpose, though.
So that you appear, so that you appear twice on the ballot.
Okay. I don't know. He'll come back. He'll come back. He won't stop for a minute.
My mic not hot or something?
Yeah. Mike's not hot.
Microphone is on or something.
What?
Uh-oh.
I'm not kidding. I'm picking him up on your microphone, Bruce.
Are you?
It's up.
It's
I'll make sure my
it's the
phone is on vibrate here.
It's
It's
off.
off.
That's why.
Thank you, buddy. Good. Well,
Last time I let you do my mic check.
He's very professional.
We'll basically do a little thing where you stop talking, where you go like, and I'm doing this and this, and we'll do it on Tom.
Okay.
On Mark?
Okay, oh, Mark. Yeah, Mark.
Well, he can
Oh,
just
and
switch
then-
when he
and
starts
then I'll
talking
switch
about
in.
My microphone
Okay.
is on though, right?
No.
You're fine.
No.
Okay.
He's just. I'm just going to kind of like start in. He's going to hit it
Actually,
again.
I'll start on you, Bruce, and you can introduce.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Good. Sounds great. Okay.
Because it just like, it wasn't working.
I got you.
We're 35, got 35 minutes, right?
Yeah. Right. Good. Good. Because we want to get some discussion.
Guess that's right.
Give me just a minute.
Okay. He wants to do it. He wants to do it professionally. See, he's sharp. Pimper sharp. He's good too.
I take it they're
Except
going
I'm
to
not
splice
doing my
everything
job.
together
Yeah.
at the end then, or
Oh
something?
no, no, might
No,
just
we're
yeah.
just stopping
That's
and
cool.
starting.
I'll
Oh,
show you
stop
how to
and
do it.
starting,
Let me show
okay.
you. You just kind of turn the right way now.
Is Gladstone in your
Give
area?
me a voice.
I
Okay,
think so.
Jesse,
I think
okay,
so.
get-
1, 2,
one.
1, 2. Voice.
Talk,
Check.
talk. Keep talking.
Check.
Keep talking.
Happy? Good level?
Okay, keep talking.
Should I talk louder, shorter,
No, just keep talking.
longer?
Just keep talking.
1, 2,
That's
3.
good, that's good.
Okay.
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 Okay, I'm gonna go 5, 4, 3.
2, 1. Okay, Mark, that was great. I mean,
Oh, wait,
Thank
wait,
you.
wait. No. Wait. I'm gonna do that. I haven't done it yet.
Oh, okay.
I'm telling you what I'm gonna do, and then I'm gonna do it.
all right, buddy.
Okay, hold on. Okay, 5, 4, 3.
Okay, Mark. That was quite an interview with that, buddy.
Oh,
He had quite
thank
a
you.
background. I tell you, it's right on front. Running against again in 5, District 5.
District 5, yep.
5. Again, running against Schrader, right?
Running against
Okay,
Kurt Schrader,
good.
yep.
Okay, good. Well, now we're going to have Tom Harrison. Tom's going to be here
Okay.
running against Earl Blumenauer. He's been there for quite some time, Tom.
Yeah, 22 years. I think it's long enough,
Wow, I
don't
know
you?
you got something going. So hey, why don't you just get around on in there and start
Well,
talking about this
yeah,
stuff?
I'm Tom Harrison. I live in Oregon City, been an Oregonian all my life. And, well, except for the time I went off to college. And during this campaign season, I opened my primary ballot and discovered that no Republican was running against Earl Blumenauer. And that was the end of that. I told my family, I said, this is nuts. I'm going to run a write-in campaign. And announced it publicly a couple days later. And managed to win the Republican nomination by 7 votes against
7 votes.
against the second highest vote getter, and that was Earl Blumenauer himself.
Wait a minute. He's running as a D on one side. How
Correct.
can
Well, you get some people who are fervent about their candidate. They switch parties and write them in a party where it's vacant. So in this case, it was vacant. So they just wrote him in to get him as the Republican nominee as well. So he appears twice on the ballot, has a chance of getting some votes of people who just check off the R's
Right.
and don't notice that he's not really a Republican.
Wow.
So,
Interesting.
It was like I said, about a 2.5 week push, and managed to get the nomination.
But you're here now. You're running.
Yeah, I'm here now. I've been content to sit on the sidelines for a long time. I do websites for Republican candidates. I handle Republican things, conservative things in general. But it was time to now get involved. My history goes back, I said, Oregonian all my life. As a sophomore in college, I went to Dartmouth, pretty good school, majoring in math, taking everything I could in physics, so I was getting heavily in sciences. Took my freshman economics. At the end of my sophomore year, I was in my parents' backyard. My mother's actually at that point, my dad had passed away, and was touting the war on poverty from Johnson administration and complaining about the fact that the reason it wasn't working was businesses weren't paying their fair share, that well-worn phrase that we still hear today. And my uncle on my mother's side looked at me and kind of shook his head and said, "Tom, you're an idiot." Oh, no, I'm a Dartmouth sophomore. I think I'm all that in a bag of chips. So I said, "What do you mean calling me an idiot?" He said, No. You're just pay attention. He said, "I've had a business in Portland for 25 years and I've never paid any taxes." I said, "You should be in jail. What do you mean you haven't paid any taxes?" He said, "No, pay attention. I don't pay any taxes. My customers pay my taxes." Well, I rocked back on my heels. I was completely silent for about 30 seconds, and And by the end of that 30 seconds, I knew he was quite correct. I'd run through the numbers in my head. I'm not stupid. I could run the numbers. I understand where the money's coming and going in business. And he was right, of course. All taxes are based on revenue in business. So he was correct. Well, that turned me into a fiscal conservative and then put me on the road to understanding the rest of conservatism. I consider myself a first principle conservative. My understanding of rights and understanding of the way governance should operate is based on the idea that we have rights inherent in us, and that's of course what the Declaration says. Of course, the Declaration didn't invent those rights. Those have been around since we were throwing rocks at each other. The idea that you have a right to live, that's simple enough, but to recognize it in government as something that's inherent in the citizen is complete opposite to what a statist would say, was what your life is for the benefit of the state and that's it. Well, that's the correct way is that that right is part of the person. Inherent in that, or implied by that, if you have a right to life, then you have a right to defend your life. If someone says you have a right to live, but you can't defend it, they've taken away your right to live. So there are things that are implied by that fundamental right. The right to property is the same way. The understanding that if you make something, you've invested part of your life in it. Well then, okay, you get to keep that. It's yours. So it's a first principle position, and that's where I base my political understanding. So the Declaration and the Constitution still are radical, even today. It's still not done, although I did note that here yesterday, the UK, or not the UK, the European Union, in the UK, there was a case similar to the cake case here, except the UK judged absolutely that that baker did not have a requirement to bake a cake. So it was a matter of expression, and so the Section 9 and Section 10 of the European Constitution protects that right, and the European High Court said that baker did not have to make that cake. So if the same would be true here, would be nice. It hasn't happened yet, but perhaps this court will.
And you're talking about this local incident in regards to the...
Oh, I'm comparing it to contrasting it with the UK
that happened in the city of Portland not too long ago.
Gresham, in the Sweet Cakes by Melissa.
Sweet Cakes, yeah, okay.
So it is interesting to see Europe actually moving on rights when, of course, we rebelled against European views on things, and French and British, to establish our country, and then we were way ahead on rights. Well, this one there seemed to be ahead for a while. In any event, my candidacy now, in having moved through that understanding, is now based upon things that I find that Earl's doing entirely wrong. He came up into Oregon, came to Sheridan, and cried crocodile tears for people who were separated and in detention, waiting asylum claims. Well, I had a long conversation with the Mexican consul 12 years ago now, and I asked him a blunt question. I said, "Why does the Mexican government..." Now, mind you, he was not a stupid man. He was not a ill-educated man. He had a PhD economics from University of Chicago. So a bright fellow, well-educated, very eloquent, very well-spoken, and he's sitting at a table with about 15, 20 people that were listening to him speak. And I just kind of cornered him on it, and I said, why does the Mexican government provide aid and instruction for people to cross our border illegally and to take advantage of U.S. services illegally? And he smiled and he said, well, it's not illegal for us to do that in Mexico. So he basically said, we're going to be a bad neighbor, but it's okay, it's legal for us to do it. We're not breaking our laws, we're just breaking yours. So a very interesting conversation. It put well, that kind of pretty much cemented the understanding that we have a bad neighbor to the south. They're like us in some things, but they keep sending people across the border, and they are still assisting, and in fact they're facilitating a migration through Mexico from their southern border by giving them passes to go through as long as they're heading for the United States. That is not a good neighbor. And they're violating asylum law also, because asylum is first border you cross. That's where you get to claim asylum, no place else. So the immigration laws, or rather the breaking of them is a major issue. If we do not reestablish the nature of our country being rule of law, not rule of whim, we lose our country. That's the whole fundamental nature of our country is we are ruled by law, not by people. So we establish law, the courts test law. These are the things that are, and the executive enforces. That's the way it's supposed to operate, to be clear of the prejudice that people will build up, to keep it with the office and the function, not with the personality. So that's a very important thing. As part of that, sanctuary here in Oregon is although well-intentioned at the time, it was put in place by a near unanimous vote, and it was put in place at a time when we had our first amnesty. It would look like we'd have this under control. We were promised border security, and we could now settle down and try to integrate the people that were already here. Well, of course, enforcement didn't happen, so we ended up with sanctuary. The sanctuary law now has become a shelter for people that shouldn't have been here. Sergio Martinez should have been deported one more time.
He was deported, yeah.
Well, I know, he was deported several times. But the fact that he could continue to stand in our country is partly border security and partly sanctuary, because he could hide easily. If sanctuary were doing what the proponents claim it does, which is to make the community willing to work with the police, how had his felonious behavior remained hidden for so long? He was a felon since the time he returned from his first deportation. So he was a felon in hiding, and the community hid him. I guess that sanctuary idea of law enforcement isn't working.
Sure.
So it's a mess. It needs
You're
to
right.
be fixed. But the other issue, ever since being told I was an idiot and having it proved in 30 seconds, I've been studying economics, to the point where when I have a daughter who went to Hillsdale, was valedictorian there in math and economics, and then went on to George Mason in the PhD program, but stopped at master's. So the kids in my house liked talking economics. It was interesting to them. So one of the things that happens, you study taxation, after you start with the basic understanding that businesses don't pay taxes, I started looking at every taxpayer and realized that whenever you levy a tax, no matter where you levy it, that tax eventually filters out to everyone else. Because the person who writes the check, upon whom the tax is levied, has to adjust their behavior to accommodate the tax. They either spend less, or they save less, invest less, they buy a little less stock. Everything that they do then affects other people. Well, as they affect other people, those people are now shouldering the burden of some of that tax. And it continues with the next generation and the next generation. Every time the money cycle goes, then it spreads it out. And it spreads it to anyone, even if they can't afford it. So the people who really can't adjust, because everything they have is in necessities, are the poor. And if you tax someone, no matter how much money they earn, eventually that tax is going to be shouldered by everybody else, including the poor, who can't adjust. So it became a bumper sticker understanding. All taxes tax the poor. It doesn't matter who writes the check, everybody pays the price. So this is supposed to be not a call for no taxes, but a call to understand that when we levy a tax, it must be the least possible, and it must be done, well, it must be done because there's no other way. Because it's going to hurt the poorest in our community. Guess what? That makes perfect sense. The war on poverty was meant to eliminate poverty, right? That was the promise.
Yeah.
We have more poor people now. What is it, $11 trillion later? We have more poor people now. That's because the taxes that were taken and the debt incurred to pay that $11 trillion bill are landing on the backs of the poor too. So they lose ground for that, even if you give them money, which helps them gain ground. So it becomes quite a mess. So the understanding of that, just getting that spoken on the floor of Congress when taxes are discussed, to have people understanding that when they are taxing, they're going to hurt as well as help. And it's easy to see the people you help. You can point to them and say, we wrote a check for them. But you can't see the people that get hurt, even sometimes the same people. So that's an important thing. So two things, immigration and taxes are my fundamental issues.
Awesome, awesome. Guys, great, great, great. Want to start with the first one? Or do we want to just get right up into some of the other?
Go ahead.
Well, hey, right up front with you, you guys are, both of the congressional districts sort of abuts one another, aspect of it. And actually one of the major issues, besides the immigration issue aspect of it, is the homeless piece. That's huge. That's huge throughout the state. But we've got probably the greater population of those right within these two areas where you guys are, aspect of it.
The metro areas.
The metro area aspect of it. So I'd like to get your response from both of you.
Well, I was brought up with a mindset and kind of the values of basically working for what you get because you value it more. It's just the way I was raised. I worked at McDonald's in high school. I had a paper route prior to that. I delivered pizza in college. I actually worked at a senior center in Corvallis when I was going to Oregon State as well. So I'm very familiar with, in terms of working with seniors, and it was an activity center is what it was, and we would go on trips, for example, like the salmon bake over in Depot Bay. That was always fun. But the point is, I think that having the mindset of working for what you get because you value it more and giving people a hand up as opposed to a handout is going to build a stronger foundation in the long run in our society, especially in the metro area. So if we can encourage people, I know that there's mental illness out there within the homeless community. I know that there's veterans out on the street too. And as I said, one of my main issues is veterans health care. And so I want to help veterans as much as I can. And I think as a society and as a community, we need to provide the healthcare resources, the mental health resources that we can, and provide opportunities where they can take a job, start earning their own income, develop their own foundation, earning their money, paying for their own rent, paying for their own utilities, paying for their own food. And so we can have people and provide those opportunities for them to take advantage of those opportunities. We can't actually make the choice for them, and then just giving it to them doesn't really give them skin in the game. Basically, it basically is just a handout. Is that I'm more in favor of a hand up as opposed to a handout. So as long as our society and our community can provide those opportunities to the homeless, to those that are experiencing mental illness, and to our veterans that are on the street, I think that's what we can do as a society. At the federal level, I don't think I'm kind of against actually doing something from a very top-down approach from the federal level. I think the homeless issue, granted, I am going to be working with local people here at the state level and local level, but to have kind of a rule at the federal level to trickle down to the state and local level, I don't think is the right approach. So I wouldn't actually make a law at the federal level. I'd more likely just work with the people here at the state and local level to solve the homeless problem.
Okay, good. Tom, you mentioned a bit, that was one of your major pieces in this area.
The homeless problem is multifaceted, but there are some things that cross boundaries on this. One of the things that I learned as a kid, and I was just a little kid, but the fellow who later became my mentor and a reason I went to Dartmouth was a guy named Harold Hirsch. Harold's father, Max Hirsch, started Hirsch-Weiss Campus Products. So that was the building down where the Oregon sign is now. It used to be White Stag. But before it was White Stag, it was Hirsch-Weiss, which is, of course, German for White Stag. His son, Harold, went to Dartmouth, class of '34. And when he got back from Dartmouth, he told his dad, because Dartmouth was a big skiing school, he said, Dad, I think there's a market for ski wear. His dad said, I think you're nuts, but I'll give you $3,000 and 3 seamstresses, and when you're out of money, you're out of business. Well, of course, it never happened. So when I was a little kid, they moved the factory out at the end of 52nd and Johnson Creek. And there's a bus line that goes all the way up to the Albina district. So Harold had his own personal desire to fix poverty in Portland, which was mostly minority poverty. So he made it his plan to, whenever they needed new cutters, new seamstresses, new packers, any of the people, they'd put advertising in North Portland, the end of that bus line, and say, we'll train. That was the key, we'll train, no experience necessary. And so as a kid, walking out into the factory floor, it was a sea of mostly black faces. And in the few times I was there because my mother was on a golfing trip or something, she played a lot of golf in Portland and around the country, I'd end up going with Dad to work. And I'd sit in on executive meetings, I'd sit in the corner and draw pictures or whatever. But I can remember seeing white faces and black faces in those meetings. So Harold did what he believed and was trying to move people out of poverty into positions of responsibility and respect and skills, which is a big deal. Okay, forward to today. We just went through a tax cut. One of the first things that happened is the unemployment rate started to drop, and then people were hunting for workers who didn't exist. Well, guess what they started doing? We'll train. When you have an economy that's moving quickly and fast, then you have need for entry-level employees, and people are seeking them and wanting to train them because they've got to get them. This is the best thing that can happen. And it's the best thing that can happen to the unemployed, whether they're homeless or not. But to have a market that is so intense on getting things produced that it will reach out and find them and draw them into training. That's the best way. All it takes for government to do that is to release the economy from regulation. What's one of the first things Trump did? Said we'll get rid of 2 regulations for every one we put in. And they actually ended up doing like 15 regulations cut for every one they put in. That's very powerful. And the tax cuts were powerful again. So the goal of keeping the economy robust and unleashed with the exception of just managing safety and so forth is the way to deal with much of the problem. And you can't get everybody, but it will make a big dent.
Okay.
And I think for the veteran, it's a big step, because if you can train somebody into a job, they may have been well trained for the military service, but it doesn't translate. But being in a position where somebody will offer to train you again and put you in a job, that's a very good thing.
Okay.
So that's the bulk of it for me.
Okay. Let's go through real quick like on some other things.
Sure.
One, I guess you guys had the opportunity to get into the conversation we just had with Mrs. Scott, who's a senior citizen kind of a home kind of nursery kind of program. And plus the fact she wants to be a small business person. She wants to do more.
I didn't quite hear all the conversation
Right,
on that. If you could give me a brief on
that. But bottom line is that what about the seniors in this country for that? They're suffering quite a bit. These are taxpayers, people who have paid and worked very hard through their lifetimes, putting monies on the side called Social Security, and yet still when they get to the point where they need that Social Security, guess what? It's not there for them. I mean, now all of a sudden, they've got all these different kind of health plans and this, that, and the other, and the fact that they're suffering. They can't even afford medication, even being on the health plan. What do we do about that? Tom, and let's do briefly because we got 15. I want to cover a number of things.
Sure. Well, Bruce, I'm 41 years old, and I know that when I get up into retirement age myself, I know that Social Security probably will not be there. A lot of people think about Social Security as an entitlement. I think of it more as a savings account. It's something we pay into over our working lifetime. I see it on my paycheck every 2 weeks where it says FICA and Medicare and Social Security. I think it's more of a savings account. But the thing is with Social Security, it's a savings account and kind of a box with a bunch of big IOUs in it that's not going to exist when I get up to retirement age. I know that. So I think if you pay into Social Security like we all do in our working lives, you should have that there when you retire. Unfortunately, as I said, the money has already been spent. There's IOUs in the lockbox, and it's not something that's going to be there for my generation when it's there. So I do support Social Security. I actually had a really great conversation with Senior and Disabled Services down in Salem here about a month ago. And the video's online if you would like to see it. But the point is, I do support Social Security. I do support seniors. As I said, I worked in a senior center when I was in college. And so I know what the issues are in terms of seniors. And having listened to Mrs. Scott earlier, I'm familiar with what senior issues are, at least to some extent from my own perspective as a 41-year-old myself. But I mean, I am very supportive of those that are seniors and those that have disabilities as well.
And promoting small business.
Exactly.
She's in the same situation right now, having problems trying to get that together. Okay, real quick, we'll go some more. What do you think?
Okay.
Right,
well, I have to disagree on one thing. Social Security is in fact an entitlement, and the Supreme Court has ruled on this. That being said, I don't believe for a minute that it is at all reasonable to try to terminate it. It is reasonable to try and move people forward to a different program as they're entering the workforce. But the system is badly flawed. It was badly flawed from the beginning.
It wasn't my contention to terminate it. I just know that it'll not be there when I get up to retirement. That's what I stated. So.
I agree. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's just with regard to it being a savings account versus entitlement, the Supreme Court has deliberately and very forcefully said that it's not a savings account because you pay as you go. It was badly formed to begin with. It was a way of getting an extra tax. But oh boy, people expected it to be a savings account, but it can never produce as much as it needs to.
So what do we do with the money, Tom?
Oh well, no, it's what we do with it.
Yeah, I mean, my
just
point
spend it.
is,
It was put in the general fund. It was spent.
But it's the individual's money.
It was.
It was.
What the Supreme Court said is it's a tax. Now, I'm not suggesting this should go away. All right, I'm not suggesting for a moment.
Should they even be paying it?
Oh no, I'm not suggesting for a moment that it shouldn't be paid. But what I am saying is that the whole system was set up to make it possible for Congress to go in there and grab that money and put it somewhere else.
Okay, all right.
So, and they did, because it was set up deliberately as a tax, and the payment was set up as an entitlement. That was a terrible thing. Now,
so what do we do?
Oh well, first thing we have to keep the obligation.
Mark do? I don't know.
We have to keep the obligation that was
obligation in there
and
I
move
agree with that.
and move from to the beginning and restructure it, which is happening with pensions everywhere.
Okay, to do what with it though? Restructure to do what?
Well, how
do
about
they get the services?
How about they maintain ownership? Right now,
Yeah,
you don't
invest
own
your own money. Yeah.
You don't own 1 penny of your Social Security. You don't own any part of it. There's no capital to it. You can't will it, for example. So it's you're done with that.
Right.
So it's a mess, right? It's a mess that needs to be that and the obligations to veterans. Obviously, those are paid obligations, and that's even different than Social Security. And it's very important that we keep those promises. With regard to Ms. Scott's issues, locally there's a lot of issues with getting things permitted. That's one of the nastiest parts of development in Oregon is land use planning, first of all, and then the counties are hungry for funds. So there are fees that just shouldn't be there, and complexities that just shouldn't be there. So the regulatory burden is so high and the funding burden is so high that we're making it almost impossible to build. And of course our land use planning has made the price of housing inside the urban area skyrocket while the rest of the county is empty. So you could look at Clackamas County, there are a lot of places that would be reasonable to build that don't build because our urban plan has to grow in these very, very studied long cycles. I'm just outside the urban growth boundary, and it looks like I won't even be into the reserve boundary for another 15 or 20 years. And this, I can almost throw a rock and hit R10 development, but we're in rural farming forest. But I'm so close to urban development. It's like, why is this happening this way? But that's because of our land use planning, which is unique in the nation, and we were promised that other states would follow us. Okay. They didn't.
All right.
Okay.
Hey, you want to get in here and say anything about the seniors maybe?
I wanted to
or whatever?
ask him, you ever heard of Frosty Wooldridge?
I have not, no.
Oh, okay. I may want to send you an email to
Okay.
do with him that might be very helpful in regard to this immigration thing, which incidentally I plan to have him on next month.
Good.
So, by the way, shouldn't you have R for Republican on these? There must be a reason why that's not on
Not
there.
particularly.
I'm there. There's no law stating that I have to state an R on my business card or campaign swag, for example. But
he's an
as
ongoing.
said, I'm here to represent everyone, and
All right.
I'm in addition to Republicans, I'm here to represent Democrats, Libertarians, Green Party, Independent, non-affiliate.
But you have to come get on someplace on the ballot, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I see on the ballot it does have an R on the ballot after my
okay,
name, but I mean, as I said, I'm here to represent everyone,
gotcha.
and
I
including
understand that.
Republicans and every party and political affiliation. But and I think that's what we need to have in Congress in order to get past the partisanship that's paralyzing our nation. If you have people going
Yeah,
into
it is.
Congress
It's a problem.
that aren't willing to represent everyone, then you have people that aren't represented in your district. So that's my main point in going to Congress, is to go up there and represent everyone. As I said, I am a Republican, yes.
And the others that are against are contributing to being separate.
Yeah, the partisanship.
You're trying
yeah.
to move it together,
and we
you're
have
right.
too much partisanship in our country right now.
Right.
Well,
that's
that's
right.
It's dividing
Well, in
us,
all due
so.
respect, that's the whole idea of this election this time around. Remember, the people spoke loud and clear.
We want
They said, look, we
gentle
want to clean up that
separation.
swamp down there. We got to clean up these. We got to get rid of them and bring in a whole new batch of activists, leader types, if you will. Then all the, as one was as I heard it. Make this country great again.
Lead by example, basically, is what I've always been taught, is to lead by
I realize
example.
we ain't gotten a whole bunch of negatives, if you will, on the so-called press and media stuff, on this other deal. But the fact of the matter is, we got to get back down to attrition and working together.
I agree.
And living
I agree.
together and raising kids and
But
small
I'll
business.
say something about partisanship.
What on?
And so I'll disagree with you. we have the partisanship because the voters have become very, very separated. We don't have as much a homogeneous country as we did. We have people who are far to the left and people who are far to the right, even so far to the right that they actually have wandered around to the left. It is the partisanship is because the people who are voting for their representatives are partisan.
Yeah.
So we're getting that.
But
the partisanship in Congress is
but
the
you do
reflection
agree,
of the
but you do
grassroots.
agree, those same folks, those same two groups of folks got together and said one thing: I want you to clean that swamp out in Congress.
Yes, there was. Great deal.
They said that.
Yes, they did.
They said that.
And that's why
you guys said-
that's why we elected Donald Trump to be our president.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, and that's why you guys are running,
Yep, exactly.
right? Exactly. That's what the deal is.
I can even bring
Trump
my own
would-
trencher.
Oh,
Trump was for of course, for the wall, and I think with all these hurricanes and things, the money that's going to be obligated for forest fires is just making it very difficult to do the wall. That's what I think. I think it's just so much more money,
Well, how
from
about-
taxpayers.
How about we don't have the forest fires in the first place? How about we do?
I agree.
How about we do forest management in terms of having the forest managed, so we don't have the big fires like we have that cost our country and our
Right.
state millions of dollars a year. So if we have the forest management, I'll tell you a story. My grandfather worked for Weyerhaeuser down in Springfield, and so he would always used to tell me he would go to work at Weyerhaeuser, and then he would call square dances at nighttime. But he would do that to pay for baby shoes for my mother and my aunt. And so he would always tell me that trees equal jobs. And so if we could just get the forest management in the forest, we won't have these big forest fires, and we can put our resources in terms of paying for the wall to other to the
That'd be
places
great.
like paying for border security, like the wall.
Great, that would be great.
I heard an interesting statistic. The cost of managing fire damage on private lands is far less per acre than the cost of fire management on public lands, because the fuel issue is entirely different. So they don't manage the forests. The private ownership means I don't want that to burn up. This is how we live as a company. Public lands, there isn't that ownership
Who cares,
understanding,
huh?
so it's not preserved. And for example, we have lands out there which we don't even have fire roads in anymore. That doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, that is a national heritage and a national asset. Why don't we protect it like we protect downtown Washington?
what about some of the ballot measures? Let's just run through those real quick, like yes or no type. What we got?
Yeah, that'd
when,
be-
when we just got through discussing the 106, yes or no?
I would say yes on 106.
Yes on 106.
Yep.
I also.
Then we got we got another one. 105.
105. That's kind of near and dear to my heart, being that I'm on the Oregon Immigration
Okay.
Reform Board. So I would say yes,
Yes.
to 105
Sanctuary.
as well. So
You know, one of the things. we're gonna-
Yes, on sanctuary, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
one thing real quick, like what we're going to do, we are going to bring someone from that wants to repeal and bring them on together. You know what I'm saying? Because the key is that we got to talk about this issue. 'cause
well,
at the end of-
105 is kind of interesting because you're technically voting yes to stop Oregon from being a
yes,
sanctuary
yes,
state. So
yes.
yes
Right.
to vote no.
Yes.
But and so I advocate for a yes vote on 105 to
Right.
stop Oregon
Right.
There
sanctuary.
you go. Okay. Let's see. What was the other one? Name them up. You know them all. You know them.
104, I believe, is the 3/5 tax. Basically, a tax is a tax, if you want to boil it down to that, where the legislature can't pass taxes and call them fees or assessments or
Okay.
any other acronym, or not acronym, but an
And you are-
analogy
and you
for.
are on- what-
I want to basically, a tax is a tax to me, so I advocate a yes vote on Measure
How
104.
about you, Tom, real quick?
Oh, yes, that's three-fifths majority.
Yeah,
We thought
three-fifths.
we had that already,
Okay.
and they worked around it by changing fees instead of taxes. This is silly.
What about groceries?
Grocery, I believe that's 103 is what you're referring
103?
to. I would advocate a yes vote on 103. I don't want my groceries taxed personally. And I think that the no campaign is basically putting a lot of deception out there in terms of, oh, well, if they're going to not tax groceries, but they're going to tax soap or something else like that. No, I think that's just deceptive. And I would advocate a yes vote on 103.
Tom?
Yes.
Which one?
This
103,
is,
the grocery
the ban
tax.
on
Grocery tax.
grocery sales tax.
Grocery sale tax.
Okay, we don't want a tax on it.
I don't want a tax on it.
Okay.
So yeah, it's
So you
kind of
want-
one of
you
those
want to
where
ban
you vote
taxes
yes
on
to
it.
vote for
That's
no
right.
tax.
No,
yeah.
this
right.
was started with Measure 97, which was going to be an excise tax, a layered excise tax, and that was going to clobber the grocery industry. I mean, Kroger makes what, 3% on their return on investment. So grocery outfits typically run on a very small margin. Same, oddly enough, as bullion and coin dealers, the people that buy and sell gold and silver. They operate on a really narrow margin. They might do $1 million in sales, but make only 2.5%, 3%. Well, so that tax is going to hit them too.
Okay.
And it was a lousy idea, but what it was a sales tax, and it was on food primarily because that's where this heavy layered, big $1 million farmer sells it to $1 million distributor, sells it through $1 million trucking company, sells it to Kroger. Well, that's 4 levels of tax you've had applied.
Okay,
So
all right.
it's the same thing, and it's better if you ban it. You also greatly reduce the possibility of a general sales tax coming back on the ballot again.
All right. Now, we have 7 more minutes here. We got the governorship running out here. We got 2 people running.
Oh,
for
yeah.
governor. Well, there's several individuals running, but the 2 top, naturally, is Kate Brown and Mueller, right?
Yep.
Okay, so what do you think? Who do you think would like to go into this?
Well,
next 4 years.
I can tell you straight up that I'm not going to vote for Kate Brown. I think
Okay.
that Kate Brown is a failed leader. I think she's a failed manager. There's videos that have come out basically proving that she's a failed leader and a failed manager. And I think in our state right now, we need strong leadership and we need strong management. There is a difference between being a manager and a leader, yes, but you got to be both if you're going to run our great state of Oregon. So I'm not going to vote for Kate Brown. The other candidate, New Breather, the Republican in the race, he and I disagree on some of the issues, but I remember what Reagan said back in the 80s. If someone is your 70% friend and 30% enemy, you still vote for him. And so, granted, Newt Bueller and I do disagree on some of the issues, yes, but I'm still going to vote for him because he is our nominee and he is our Republican nominee, and I'm going to vote for him.
Okay.
So,
I'm not sure about those percentages.
oh. Well, maybe it was 80-20, but
Yeah,
I know
no,
Who's going to vote for him? I want to give you guys a little lasting statement here real quick. Who are you going to vote for,
I
Tom?
also am very, very opposed to Kate Brown. The one thing that Newt has going for him that is at least he is thinking about not doing a carbon tax and has said he will not raise taxes. That's better than the alternative.
Okay. Well, guys, we got.
I'm worried about Newt wanting to build 20,000 units for homeless.
Well, in all due respect, I think that I'll be right up front with you guys. It's a scam. Why use homeless? I mean, in all due respect, you build a house, someone's got to pay for it.
Yeah.
So the idea, wouldn't it be a much better piece to get the job first before you start talking about the house routine? I mean, we had a good concept here in the Multnomah County when all of a sudden the county gave away and left $60 million on the table and gave away this facility.
with the Wapato.
The
facility,
Wapato.
Oh, unbelievable.
I mean, it's insulting. And then now we got a flipper, if you will, that's what I'll say. I mean, these guys come in there and just basically, they got the money, they can buy the property, they got the money to give to a campaign, picks it up for $5 million. And then you got another businessman downtown, okay? And basically said, oh, look here, I'll put $1.5 million in the pot to clean up this homeless deal. And he got together with Homer Williams, who basically was saying that's what he was doing. Well, if he had $1.5 million, well, the county could have sold that building to him for $5 million, and he had $1 million, if you will, then to work something out. Yeah. I mean, so it's ridiculous to sit up there and play this game about the housing for the homeless. It's ridiculous.
Well, one of them wants to bulldoze it. One of the last things they were talking about.
No, he's just playing games. He just wants
can't
money.
believe that.
He just wants money out the tax. He wants money from the county. He wants the county to lease that building from him, probably about maybe $10–15 million. This way he keeps the property, he flips it, picks up an extra $10 million right off the bat, and then from that point on, he picks up the other 60 or 70 million bucks. I mean, it's ridiculous.
It's a mess.
I mean, I hate to put it, but you're the economist. What do you think?
Well, I'm not the economist, but at least I've studied enough to know that's a bad deal.
Jesus
However,
Christ.
in building bankruptcies, which is essentially where they
Oh,
were,
my God.
in spite of the fact that it's government-owned, it's essentially a building bankruptcy. And when that happens, it gets real messy. I can tell you that from experience.
And then we got a winter coming just right around the corner. You got all these people out on the street. Place is all dirty. You got senior citizens out there on the streets.
Yeah.
A good warm place, good clean place.
Yeah.
And yet the people are sitting around playing the games and saying, some of the homeless are saying, well, it's like a jail. Hey, I don't want you sitting out in them streets.
Yeah.
I don't want you urinated out on the walls and out in the front in the public. You know what I mean? I want you picked up. I want to give you a job. I want you to clean yourself up. And then I want you to put that orange uniform on and get out there and clean up some of that mess while you're sitting up in there waiting for your trial.
Yeah.
I mean, all due respect, that's what we've got to do. So I'm just throwing that out on the table, guys. We got a mess out there, and we need guys like yourselves to get out there and let that work. But that's what the people are interested in. They want to get up tomorrow morning here in the metro area, and there's no tents in the front of their houses. In the summer, the kids can play out in the lawn without getting needles stuck because they get these free needles. Garbage all over the place, people urinating and this, that, and the other, tearing up in their garage. That's where the problem is, guys.
It's a monstrous problem.
That's where the vote is.
Yeah.
What are you going to say to them? Straight out, we got about a minute each one of you.
In terms of
Close. And what are you going to give that voter?
Well, as I said, I'm going out there to work for everyone.
Okay.
And I'm going out there to help everyone, regardless of party affiliation, regardless of social division. And so I'm in terms of the homeless issue, I'm going to do my best to help at the level that I can at the federal level. But as I said, in terms of the homeless issue, I think it is more of a state and local issue rather than an issue that can be handled from 3,000 miles away across the country. So I'm very supportive of helping our veterans on the street and helping those with mental illness. I think we do need to provide a solution, and I'm going to be very supportive of those here at the state and local level to do so.
Okay, Tom, what do you think?
Congress needs to keep making government more efficient and taxes lower, and that's part of the play. Making regulation on business less, because this will not be solved overnight. The solution is going to have to be because the economy pulls these people into jobs, and that makes things work. Every other solution is not sustainable over a long period of time. Obviously, getting people off the street for getting them into housing for winter is important. There are enough beds, I think, to make that work, but it's not the kind everybody wants. Okay. The only kind they want is one where there is long-term jobs.
Okay, been great. We got about 50
there.
seconds or so.
I want to thank the crew for making this show possible.
Yes.
That's the big deal here. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to do this. So we appreciate that.
Well, I think we're going to make a deal. I think we got enough people here. I think why don't we get the $5 million and get and now you go to Snitzer and buy it back from him, give it back to the county, and put the deal back on the table.
He'd probably go along with it.
I think he should. He should. Let's not flip the property. Let's get the property in the hands of Homer Williams and let him accommodate those folks in the winter, so we can go through this winter at least.
Think there's some politics in this, do you?
Oh, no politics.
Yeah.
Just get it done. Get it done. Gentlemen, it's been great.
Thank you very much, Bruce. I appreciate it.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Good luck to you.
Thank you, sir.
We're going to be
Thank
looking
you.
forward
Thank you.
to talking
Thank
to
you.
because you're going to be bringing the meat home, right?
I'm going to
I
keep
know you
the.
can count. Thanks very much, right? We'll see you next time around. See you guys.
Thank you.
Now you got to take.